Thank God it's Friday. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 55 minutes of current and relevant business conversations right here on Business Morning. I'm Ini John Mekwa, and we would do as we normally do, which is to start from the global oil space. We see that prices fell in early trading, but has remained on track for weekly gains as United States and Iran, they've continued trading strikes. And that, of course, has accelerated concerns about inflation that could soften oil demand and weigh on market and pressured prices. So for this morning, we see a further drop from what we had yesterday. I guess the market and investors are getting a bit used to all of this going on. Yeah, so it's 0.89% down at $75.59 a barrel, while WTI is almost 1%, 0.92% in the red, $71.43 a barrel for the week. Brent is set for a 6% gain, while WTI is heading for a 5% increase. Iranian armed forces launched attacks on U.S. military infrastructure in Gulf states on Thursday, following U.S. strikes on Iran's southern coastal and eastern provinces for the straining a 3-week-old ceasefire. The conflict has delayed the full reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, a key waterway that about 20% of daily global oil and gas supplies passed through before the war. And here in the market yesterday, we see continuous recovery yesterday. Great news also came the way of the NGX. But look at the numbers yesterday, 0.62% for the all share index in the green, 243,958.73. Equities at 156.547 trillion naira. Volume was the only one that closed in the green yesterday, but value and deals were down. Top trades had First Wholesale trading about 1.26 million shares. Zenith Access followed after that. And now to that great news. Nigeria's stock market yesterday became the world's best performing equity market in dollar terms this year, overtaking South Korea's Kospi index. This is according to Bloomberg data, covering 92 global stock markets, and the rally reflects renewed investor confidence in Nigeria's economic reforms and improving market condition. The data shows that Nigerian equities have returned about 64% in dollar terms since the start of the year. The strong performance comes alongside gains in Nigeria's bond and currency market. And this ranking also comes a day after S&P Dow Jones placed Nigeria on the 2027 Frontier Market Watch list. So it's good news for Nigeria. So in spite of the fact that for maybe about 10 trading sessions, we did see profit taking, in spite of that, in dollar terms, Nigeria has returned about 64% on investment, and that obviously is a good buy for investors at the markets. Now, the Food Summit for 2026 is being held by the Lagos State government in collaboration with the private sector. They've launched a national communications campaign and unveiled this year's theme, which is Gastronomy in Nigeria, Journey to Standardization. Government officials, food industry leaders, strategic partners, hospitality professionals, and about 15 accredited media organizations. They were in attendance at that launch, and they agree with the keynote addressed as by the chef and convener, Captain Bolabo Gibbs, that standardization is the missing link in unlocking the full economic potential of Nigeria's food industry.
Our staples are what will make us popular. So suya, pepper soup, amala, abula, afang. Afang is one of my best soups, by the way. Fisherman soup. These are the things that will make us popular. These are the things that will make people realize that we have technique, we have history, right? Then when we land on that table, the next conversation is ingredients, right? Because we have amazing ingredients. So how do we take our ingredients and transform them into amazing things? Because even these staples were transformed based on by people using ingredients, right? So how do we take our ingredients? So for example, our ingredients, our staples are backed by several decades of history, culture, tradition, agriculture, tourism, business. These are all the things that are fueling what we have today. And so we're saying, let us take those same factors and fuel the next generation, the next future of the conversation around our food.
What we see is that food is beyond just production. Food is actually going into the nooks and crannies of our everyday lives. It's part of our tradition, it's part of our culture. It's a way of life for us, and therefore we must elevate it beyond what we are doing currently. A lot of other climes, a lot of other nations, a lot of other states, they make so much money from food. But what we have in Nigeria is we have so much resources. We have the land, we have the human capital, we have so many things going for us. But yet we see so much in terms of food waste, we see so much in terms of post-harvest losses. We just don't seem to have it all put together. And we believe that when we start connecting actors and people start to understand their place with regards to how important they are in the food ecosystem, then we'll start working together as a collective and not in silos. And therefore, we'll get to that food security level that we want Nigeria to get to.
Well, from the food industry to the creative, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry is looking into that sector, that's the creative economy. They also brought together yesterday the players and stakeholders in that area, and there was a lot of exhibition and conversation, and they said they want to bring the money to where the creativity is. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry is focusing on creative and entertainment as its groups holds an engaging session of learning, networking, and business growth. The theme is enhancing visibility, identity, and business networking in the creative economy. Tips from professional perspective.
Networking treated as an event activity rather than a continuous business function. It is a huge misconception to think networking only happens at conferences. Now let's address visibility, identity, and networking. Not as abstract concepts, but as working framework you can apply almost immediately.
And the Chamber plans for even bigger collaboration.
What we're trying to establish here is that brand enhancement is the bedrock of a successful business. And at the Chambers, what we're trying to do is bring creativity with commerce and make them friends.
Bring the financial group out of our 36 other group that we have, the ICT, our finance group, our insurance group, all of them to collaborate together and make this a new wave in Nollywood and in the creative industry totally to be able to be bankable around the world and be a bigger source of income for Nigeria in terms of foreign exchange.
They've set out a roadmap to continue this conversation. All right, so it was a very busy day in Lagos for the business correspondents or reporters, all of that, and a whole lot more, which we'll also bring to you on Business Morning as we proceed. But first, let's have a conversation. Talking about the movements we've seen in Naira. We say Naira has been stable in the last couple of months. Inflation has been threatened, obviously, by what's going on between the United States and Iran. And then the most important part, your savings. How have these two major factors and other factors affected your savings? Do people even save? I guess we should start from there. Boluwa Dayo is the Managing Director of Blackcord Asset Management and is right here in the studio. Boluwa, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
I was asking, are people still saving in the midst of all of this? Purchasing power has been drained and people are struggling to meet up with basic, living requirements. I wonder if people are saving.
Honestly, feedback from people, not a lot have been saving, based on what you've said. But I think what we try to do is keep encouraging people and educating people that no matter what, if you have a little bit more, just try and put it away for a rainy day. Because as we see, things just keep getting more expensive, and things will always come up. So it's important that you just try and put something, no matter how little, away, because it adds up, and then from the saving, put it in investment so that you can actually get something out of it, and it's not just laying fallow there. Yeah.
And I know when COVID came, it was the first for a lot of people in the world that economic activity, in fact, movements, social activity, everything was cut off. So if you were an individual who earned daily, then you were first hit by that. So I guess a lot of people have learned from that to say, yes, things are hard. We're scratching the surface just to meet up with what we need daily, but there's still the need to look the way of savings, as you said, no matter how small.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, but then you also said not to just keep the money there.
Yes.
I know I'm so very passionate about the Nigerian stock market, and it's been doing really well and all of that. But there's still people who have fears, about it. And then there's also a lot of stories about people getting defrauded and deceived and all of that. So when you talk about savings, what should savings look like? And I'm not talking about for the elites. The elites are enlightened enough to know what they want to do. They have the funds to consult and all. But I'm talking about the very average Nigerian, the woman out there in the market, in the open market. What does she do about the savings? What would be the wisest approach to savings?
Okay, that's a very, very good question. So what I would say is everyone has a responsibility to ensure that they don't go the path of putting their money in a false business or organization. So the research, I would say, is on you, right? I mean, you can check the reputable businesses. You can check with the regulators. Say, for example, CBN. This is a bank. We know the regular banks, for example. If it's an asset management like ours, you can check with the regulators and check who's registered, right? And
are you talking of savings accounts now?
No, so I'm talking about savings, and then I'm talking about investments, for example, an asset management business like ours. Like, once you check and you ensure that these are legit companies, right, then you can go about actually putting the money with them. Because I know what you mentioned is also people are afraid of their money disappearing, maybe due to one fraud or the other, right? So you want to ensure that where you're putting your money is a reputable business. It's a real place, there are real people behind it, not just the things that fly about on the internet sometimes. So you start, again, I'll say you start and you just start small, right? The plan is not to, like you said, not with the elites, the average person. Maybe what you can put away is 500 naira a week or 500 naira a month or 1,000 naira. It will still add up eventually.
So you do have platforms that allow you to save 500 naira a week and all of that.
Yeah, so a lot of businesses, a lot of even investments or asset management businesses, yes, allow you to, they have platforms for the retail. That's what we call it, for our retail clients. So we understand that obviously their purchasing power, what they have available is much lower. So yes, we allow that you can invest, depending on the fund, maybe 1,000, 5,000, based on what you have, and just to help ensure that every individual, no matter how big or small you're earning, no matter who you are, has a bit of a saving and investment culture.
So do they have to come to you, the investment company, or can you go to them? Because when you want to look at it, a lot of these people, perhaps investment companies will be on the island because they are targeting the big money and everything. So picturing that a woman who has a small stall and everything will think and say, oh, let me go to that investment company. It might be a bit hard. So do we have avenues? I know the Lagos State, I think it's LIC, they have an investment fund or something. Yeah. They go to the people, they preach the message in different languages and all of that, but that's the government. We expect that the private sector can cover more grounds. Do we see a situation where investment companies actually target these individuals and go to them?
Good question again. So, I mean, what we do is a broad based targeting. However, that's a very good point, and I see that that's also a market that maybe it's largely untapped. So I know we
So you
have
pay me
had.
for that.
Don't worry. I know that that is something that in my head I'm already calculating.
I
Okay,
know,
how do we do
right?
this? But yeah, I mean, it's a good idea to hit the markets. We all know the major markets that you can hit. Talk to people, have your flyers, have your stands, and encourage them, because I think obviously people get more encouraged when they see presence, right? Established presence, and so essentially you just teach them about it, walk them through it. We have the apps that you can use even for our business at Blackcord. You can invest with us, and essentially just teach them how to use it, because we also want a way whereby they do it themselves, right? But yeah, so
And
it's
all
very
of this,
good.
because all of this, yesterday I had a conversation on the tax nets, because when you formalize one way or the other, these companies or these businesses, when they are captured, then we can talk about increasing the tax net or formalizing the Nigerian economy, which we say is largely informal and a lot is
Yes.
being lost. So at the end of the day, if we had more people captured, and more
Absolutely.
people educated financially, then at the end of the day, it's better for the economy. Bigger business for you, bigger business for us.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yeah, absolutely. So financial literacy is very important. The more the people are educated, imagine we have a large population, right? The more they are educated, the more, like you said, the government can benefit for it. It ends up translating back, and being an economic benefit for everyone in the long run. So yes, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So don't forget my commission for that.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
Ebola Dayo Adepoju, Managing Director at Blackcord Asset Management, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, the federal government is working on special agro-industrial processing zone. We have an elaborate conversation on that. After this break, please stay with us. Climate change is forcing a lot of conversations all around. FITC is also joining in that. How can the financial sector also contribute to the conversation of climate change for us to have a sustainable environment for business operations? That's what this report is about.
Climate change is no longer just an environmental issue. It is increasingly influencing investment flows, business competitiveness, and long-term economic growth. Against this backdrop, business leaders, regulators, policymakers, and development finance institutions gathered in Lagos for the third edition of the FITC Sustainability and ESG Conference to discuss practical solutions for building a more sustainable Africa.
What is important to us is that there should be a movement from conversation to commitment. And so today's conference brings together an exceptional cross-section of Africans who are leading different ecosystems in businesses, executives and board chairs and regulators and policymakers in diverse sectors, and also, very importantly, sustainability practitioners.
Regulators say climate risk is increasingly becoming a financial risk, requiring banks and financial institutions to strengthen sustainable financing frameworks while supporting investments that promote resilience and inclusive economic growth.
The CBN, on its own part, has integrated a lot of green finance and sustainable financing model into its banking regulation to ensure that the green financing and sustainability gain traction in Nigeria. In the light of this, I am confident that the insights generated from today's conference will contribute meaningfully to advancing Africa's sustainable development.
Of course, nature is very, very kind, but oftentimes very comical. That we're speaking about sustainability now, and the rains are all year. And we can see exactly why this is a very important part of our living.
Chairman of the MTN Foundation urged organizations to embed sustainability into long-term business planning.
Africa stands at a defining moment. The choices we make today will shape the continent we leave for future generations. We can continue to pursue growth measured only by economic output. Or we can, yes, we can do that, or we can pursue growth that creates lasting value, growth that protects our environment, empowers our people, strengthens institutions, and expands opportunity for all.
When we Africans believe in ourselves and we say, well, this is Africa, we must fight it together. President Clinton came to this country some years ago. He said, Nigerians, you have no business going all over the world. Your resources are here. And he was tapping the floor. He knew what he was talking about. You think all those foreign countries coming over here, because we know that we are endowed with a lot of mineral and natural resources. You look at, Prof was talking about mining, 30% of mining all over the world. They are in Africa. So the point is that how do we Africans come together as one pole and trust ourselves? Because the moment we don't trust ourselves, there's no way we can do business together.
As climate challenges intensify and investor expectations evolve, stakeholders say stronger partnerships between government, regulators, and the private sector will be critical to financing Africa's transition to a more sustainable and resilient economy.
The federal government says that it is planning to expand its special agro-industrial processing zones in the country. And of course, this follows other conversations around economic zones, which we see that the federal government has shown interest in. This happened in Abuja, Federal Capital Territory, yesterday. And speaking at a lecture organized by the Nigerian Institute of Agricultural Engineers, the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar Kyari, notes that the initiative will accelerate mechanization and add value across agricultural value chain.
Now we have 8 states in the first phase, including FCT, and then we have already received 27 expression of interest, 27 from 27 states that will go on the second phase. But second phase first trying to have 10 states, and we're going to launch them very soon. What that seeks to do is to put together in peri-urban areas, not in the urban areas, in peri-urban areas where there will be production, there will be aggregation, there will be storage and processing. As you are well aware today, our agricultural produce are sold in its raw form. Some of them even exported in its raw form. What we want to do is add value. Mr. President had told us to add value to whatever we do so that the additional income will also go to the smallholder farmer in the rural areas. So that zone is going to be provided by road network infrastructure, generally water supply, power supply, so as to capture all the agents of the value chain of agricultural production from production to market.
So let's stay on that and, of course, expand the conversation now with Mr. Bamidele Ayemibo, the Chief Executive Officer and Lead Consultant at 3T Impex Trade Academy. Mr. Ayemibo, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. How are you today?
Great. Good to have you. So we just had the minister there talking about adding value. It's not a new conversation, unfortunately. But we see that it seems that the federal government is looking the way of economic zones now to bring this to bear. So from your observation, talking about trade and all of that, how impactful have our free trade zones, economic zones, whichever way we want to capture it, agro-processing zones, how impactful have they been? How much have they contributed to the economy so far?
Until Dangote came on board, we're not hearing a lot about what's happening in those zones. We have oil and gas free trade zones. Those ones were functional to a very large extent because, of course, we do a lot of shipment of oil and gas. And so you see a number of those ones coming up. That's One oil and gas free trade zone, for example. But what we have within the other one, the one under the NEPSA, the Nigerian Export Processing Zone Authority, which is for the industrial and commercial, not much is happening there as far as I'm concerned, but with what has happened at Lekki Free Trade Zone, with what Dangote is doing, we can see a lot of impact now on the economy. But before now, apart from the oil and gas, all other ones are not really impactful. Not because nothing is happening there, but they're not really very impactful on the economy. But I mean, maybe because of what Dangote has been able to do is what is inspiring the government to want to do more in this direction. We definitely need such zone to encourage businesses to find a place where they can process, add value, and export to be able to add value to the country. But then, of course, they need a lot of support because now in the new tax act, now the tax holiday is no more blanket. There are now conditions for them to enjoy those tax holiday in the free zone. So this policy inconsistency also is now affecting people even going into the zone.
So one issue I wanted to bring up, because I did go to one of the zones and I had a conversation with some of the stakeholders, and that is a concern also, the impact of the new tax law. But you said before Dangote came on, I mean, it seemed, but we know that the AFDB also has a program targeting these zones. Are you saying that perhaps we have not as a country responded enough to benefit from that initiative of the African Development Bank Group?
No, like I said, the zone have always been operational. I mean, we have Calabar Free Zone, which was the first in Nigeria. We have the Lekki Free Zone. We have the Onne Free Zone. We have the Ladol. We have Ogun, Kano, and Tinapa. We have a couple of them. But what I'm saying is, I'm talking about the impact on the economy. Maybe because of the volume of what is going on at Dangote Refinery, we can see the impact. But of course, the zone have been operating, particularly the oil and gas zones, and I'm now focusing beyond the oil and gas that we've had, like the one in Onne, to what is now happening because of what Dangote is doing in the free trade zone in Lagos. It's not being, and even for our businesses, because when foreigners come into Nigeria, one of the areas they want to go to is free trade zones. Why? Because of they know the implication. I mean, China, for example, have 22% of their GDP from free zone. In fact, 45% of their FDI is going to free zone. And about 60% of their export is for free zone. Now, China has made a very huge success of free zone, and many other countries around the world. So we have not been able to do a lot in that regard, probably because of education, number one, but more importantly also is because of even infrastructure deficit. Remember, Dangote has to do a lot for himself. Even his power, he has to generate his own power by himself. So a number of other constraints hindering businesses from maximizing the opportunity within this zone.
Yeah, and talking about infrastructure, I don't know if you heard from the Calabar trade zone, there are issues. I wonder if they've been resolved, but I mean, it was just about 3 weeks or so ago. Concerns of insecurity. They say some of their things were getting stolen. Interagency issues, and so there's bureaucracy, and then operators do not even know who to go to because the agencies are clashing over the duties. So obviously, perhaps this shows that we are not mature enough to manage these zones for it to make enough impact as much as it should on the economy.
Very correct. In fact, it's not just those agencies, even for banks. We've not had banks in this zone. If they ordinarily, not this supposed to be offshore. Technically, they are not part of Nigeria. So a bank that is in that zone is supposed to be an offshore bank, not necessarily under the regular regulation in Nigeria. So for example, if you are importing into free zone in Nigeria, you're not supposed to do your regular application via Formem to the government. If you're exporting from that zone, also the same thing. So and so most of them have to still work with banks outside the zone. So we have not holistically looked at the issues and be able to ensure that all the agencies have a good understanding of what is required, even for the bank to be able to ensure that they have their branches set up there and operate like an offshore bank that is expected, considering the fact that they are not custom zone and they are set to be free. So this is not just in the area of interagency issue, even concerning finance and the like, and banking services is also the same thing. But like you said, it's new in Nigeria where, like I said, we are really beginning to see the need and the impact and the scale and what can be done in that zone because of what Dangote have done in Lekki. And this seems to be a renewed interest for the government. And I believe if we embrace it, of course, we'll probably be able to enjoy what other countries around the world have done with free zones.
And NEBSA is there, the regulator, and of course, they are supposed to. I know when I went to the Lagos Free Trade Zone, of course they have an office there, along with other customs and all of that. and a lot of promises being given. But even there, I did notice that the area wasn't as populated as one would have thought. And now we have this tax reform, which could be, even the CEO of NEBSA says, it's most likely is going to drive some of the operators away. So how do we make our zones more attractive? The first target, obviously, is FDIs, the international companies, even though we do have local players also there. How do we make it more attractive, if maybe I should put it that way, so that we have populated zones to enjoy the benefit and also give out the economic and social benefits that the country expects?
The government must, before we settle a zone, we need to ask ourselves, this is supposed to be industrial zone. It's supposed to be for manufacturing, for export. So it has to be close, of course, to a port. Yeah. I mean, to be able to ship out, number one. But more importantly, is infrastructure like power. Road network, power is necessary, port close by are things that will be able to attract businesses to those zones. If there is no gas supply to be able to provide power, if there is no nearby port or a rail to take goods out or to bring stuff in, like some of the issue we have in Lekki, the fact that we're not able to maximize Lekki for import because we expect a rail to move from Lekki, out of Lekki to other parts. Maybe with the coastal rail now, maybe it will be easier for them to be able to. But those are the things that should have been in force even before the zone is completely operational, actually. So road network, infrastructure, ports, access to port, and more importantly, power, are very, very infrastructure that will attract businesses to those zones. Because in Nigeria, in fact, Nigeria does not just call it free trade zone, Nigeria call it Nigerian export processing zone. So ab initio, we wanted, of course, which is the whole idea of a free zone around the world, to be able to make it export focused. The goal is actually to make it export focused. And if we don't make the place conducive for business to be able to set up and begin to export, then, like you said, it's going to be empty. You don't get to see a lot of activity going on in those areas.
All right, so Mr. Yemi, just a few minutes. I did this report from my visit to the trade zone and then a conversation with the NEBSA CEO to see how the reality on ground, at least from Lekki Free Zone, and then the perspective of the CEO of NEBSA. So let's take this report and then we'll come back to you on this conversation. The Nigeria Export Processing Zones Authority, NEBSA, reports that over 40 licensed free zones are in different parts of Nigeria, housing over 500 licensed enterprises. These zones focus on sectors like manufacturing, oil and gas, and logistics. NEBSA promotes and facilitates both local and international investment into licensed free special economic zones which have been approved by the President. They also monitor and evaluate zones operations to ensure strict adherence to standards, establishment and supervision of zonal administrators for effective management, and ensure that economic objectives are achieved. To attract operators, benefits include duty deferral and exemption, customs duties and taxes typically not levied on goods entering a free zone until they move into the domestic market, and no duties are paid on re-exported goods, improving cash flow. Others are simplified and faster customs processing within the free zones, logistics and supply chain optimization, value-added activities, access to infrastructure and services, competitive operating costs, among others.
Those incentives is revenue that should have come to government that we have waived. So in return, these are the things we expect. The declared free trade zone must employ Nigerians. It must train Nigerians at all levels. Professional, semi-skilled, unskilled must be trained. It must transfer technology. Primarily it was designed to bring in foreign investment. We have a lot of local investment now. It must transfer technology. And very importantly, and this is sometimes missed by both the Nigerian public and the government, some other government agencies. Very importantly, they are supposed to develop their local communities.
However, some of the benefits to businesses operating in the zone seem threatened by part of the reform tax law, which states that if an enterprise sells up to 25% of its goods into the Nigerian market, it faces proportionate taxes. If 128 profit by a free zone entity from sales domestic country fully subject tax regardless of the percentage.
Because of those laws, I believe some foreign direct investment is probably slipping into other West African countries like Ghana and all those areas, because they are just concerned not so much about the law, but about the unpredictability of having a free zone in Nigeria. So some of them will slip away to they have done, to the nearby countries.
Lagos Free Trade Zone, an 860 hectares industrial hub in Ibejuleki, is one of the active economic zones in the country's commercial capital. It boasts of different businesses. For instance, operators of the zone say foreign exchange that would have been sourced for the purchase of some industrial building materials has been reduced by the availability of locally manufactured materials.
Here we are standing in bay number 1. It is cold form productions. Here we produce louvers, ZC purlins, roofing sheets. So it is cold form. We produce here building materials. On bay number 2, it is our detailing bay where we produce small items, small drilling, everything is the tiniest items. In bay number 3 is our welding bay, where we actually, it's heart of factory, we will go to this machine where we actually creating I-beam. I-beams, columns, which are going to be installed at the site. We only import raw materials, steel plates, from our suppliers. Mainly it's from China. We have long-term partners there who achieve that quality which we need. Unfortunately, we don't have raw steel plates or coils in Nigeria, but we are trying to push it with Minister of Steel also. After we received raw materials, all products, roofing sheets, cladding, purlins, steel beams, everything is produced here for Nigerian market. Our market is Nigeria.
The companies are also offered ease of doing business.
It makes the total supply chain for industries within the zone very efficient. Clients within the zone through our green channel from the port to the zone ensure faster, seamless movement of goods from the zone to the enterprises manufacturing site, and you can do that within 24 to 72 hours from vessel arrival, right? And this is one of the key changes which you cannot get in any port anywhere in Nigeria. All right, so we have done a dedicated link, a dedicated transport line between the ports and the zone, right? So at vessels arrival, the cargoes that are designated for the zone has a dedicated lane it takes from here into the zone itself, and this can be done within 24 to 48 hours. We have customs on board 24 hours. We have customs on board, so all the clearance of those cargoes are done at the client's facility because it's a bonded zone.
Other benefits for the economy is through the social impact.
Lagos Free Zone sustainability is a core part of our strategy. We look at what sustainability is as a whole, both financial and non-financial. For the non-financial sustainability, we look at the air, the water, the waste, how we can make waste circular, how we can reutilize things and ensure that we keep the business going without affecting the environment. Specifically, if you look at the water, we have ponds and lakes around the zone where we harvest rainwater and reuse it. We paved our roads with paver blocks, so that rainwaters can infiltrate and recharge the groundwater. Specifically for the community, we have a community development plan, and this is based on our community need assessment done years back. We've interacted with the communities and with the businesses around to understand the issues of the surrounding area. And our aim is that as we grow, the community should grow alongside us.
While the government expects contributions from the corporate, the zones are expected to be equipped with infrastructure to ease their operations to avoid situations as the concern in Calabar Trade Zone, where stakeholders had raised issues of insecurity, power shortages, and bureaucratic bottlenecks, as well as overlapping government agencies and frequent policy changes that have limited operations and field theft of equipment. All right, that's a visit that I did to the Free Trade Zone in Lagos and some of my findings there. Mr. Yemi, but I hope we still have you. Okay, so issues raised there, I know we've already touched on some of it, like the Calabar zone and the issues that they have, but also the issue of infrastructure within the zone, which seems, as you said, yes, I can, even when they can bring in those raw materials, but how do we get the finished products out? And I know you mentioned the issue of connecting the zone in Lagos, for instance, to the rail. I don't think that's being practiced yet, though.
Not yet, not yet. But I must commend the fact that they are clearing within 24 to 48 hours getting into the factory. That's very commendable. Which is why I said, look, a port is useless. Sorry, a free zone is useless if you have a port, because it's supposed to be industrial zone. Good is coming. I mean, raw materials are coming in. You're processing, and then you're able to push it out to be able to add value to the economy as much as possible. But like I said, there is a life. There is a lot of what everybody has done has created a lot of life in the Lagos free zone and also in the Lekki free zone. What I think needs to be done is to encourage other governors in other places to be able to take a leap from what has been done and be able to add life to what is happening in their location. But if they are going to be able to do it and bring life to those zones in other parts of the country, then the infrastructure must be in place, particularly access to ports, because there's an advantage, the fact that you are not going to pay duty. And of course, with the tax law, that is now limiting how much shipment you can do, and the fact that you have to now begin to pay duty for a certain amount of shipment into the zone also is a discouragement. I hope maybe, I mean, if the head of the agency is talking about this, Minister of Finance, I'm sure will have heard about that. And I don't know if there was no conversation with them during the hearing, I mean, the public hearing regarding the tax law. Maybe there will be need for an amendment so that what the DG confirmed about movement of FDI to other nearby countries can stop because of, I mean, if there's an amendment of that law afterward.
Yeah, well, I guess we did agree at the beginning that this law will need amendments because if it's not happening in other countries, and we have competition close to us, Cotonou, they have great ports and all of that, then that could be a challenge for us. So in the process of raising revenue, we're now driving away the source of revenue. But I guess that's up to NEBSA to follow up with the minister or the lawmakers for that amendment if they perceive that it is something that is really important. But the other part, the good thing about these zones is, I mean, as you heard there for Lagos Free Zone, they try to work with the community. I imagine that if all the zones or the economic zones that we have in Nigeria work with their community, I know that late last year there was the initiation of the Ajaokuta Economic Zone. And we know what has happened, the potential that as a country we are missing from Kogi State through Ajaokuta, not just the steel mill, but you know, the environment and all of that. So I'm just trying to imagine that if all the zones impact their community through education, through jobs, a skills transfer, I mean, that will go a whole lot to reduce the number of unemployment that we really have.
Yes, in fact, some have had their projects stalled because of land dispute, resettlement, and the like. So if you are going to be able to grow the business, and in fact, not just hiring their children, the citizen or the people in the community, either both the skilled and unskilled worker to be able to get something doing within the factory, number one, so they can have a sense of ownership. They may not have the right skill, but there are still some blue-collar jobs that they can train them to be able to do. And like you said, more importantly also is to ensure that the community, from school to hospital to infrastructure, are built. So the community can be happy that, look, at least, even if government have not been able to do this, this organization who is making money in this place is also remembering us and doing something for us, which I think is a good initiative, so that we avoid some of these disputes, because they have to do some resettlement actually, and so after some years, some of them will come back and say, no, you can't build here. And basically what they are saying is that, what do we benefit from what you are going to be doing in our environment?
So, well, at least we have started this journey of economic zones. We only hope that we can provide those infrastructure and reduce policy uncertainty, which is one of the things that the CEO said, of NEBZA. Reduce that and then give them the infrastructure they need, and then wait for those benefits. Mr. Ayemi, well, thank you so much for coming on the program. Or any final words on this issue?
Yes, we need to grow non-oil export and economic zone, like I said, in the case of China, a very good example. In fact, at some point, some countries have been able to do up to Dominican Republic, up to 90% of their export was from this zone at some point. In Nigeria today, we have so many. It's interesting to know that over 40 have been licensed. But guess what? Only about 20-something are operational. Out of the over 40, I think about 47 or thereabout, 42 licensed and about 25 operational. And one of the issues, some of the issues we've discussed today, and these are necessary for us to be able to grow non-oil export in Nigeria. Because if we do a lot in the free trade zone, we'll be able to grow non-oil export from about 6.2 billion according to NEPC to whatever it is, the double or export initiative of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. All
right, thank you so much, Mr. Ayemibo, for sharing
Thank you very much for having me,
perspective with us. Mr. Bamidele Ayemibo is the Chief Executive Officer and Lead Consultant at 3T Impact's Trade Academy. Thank you. Now, unlocking the full economic potential of women is increasingly being recognized as one of Nigeria's biggest opportunities for growth. Despite their contribution to business, that's talking about women, entrepreneurship, and the workforce, women continue to face barriers to finance, leadership, and economic participation. Now, government development partners, regulators, and the private sector, they are joining forces to change that. And they showed that at the launch of the Nigeria Gender Country Program in Lagos. Stakeholders say advancing women's inclusion is not only a matter of equality, but a strategic economic priority that could boost productivity, attract investment, and drive sustainable growth.
NGX Group, as a market infrastructure institution, sits at the intersection of where companies, investors, regulators, and capital providers meet. And so from that vantage point, we see this evolution clearly. It is within this context that the Nigeria Gender Country Program is not just timely, it is necessary. This program is not a standalone gender initiative, as has been presented, of course, but it is one that brings together the strength of a lot of partnership. A few weeks ago, we convened the CEO Roundtable, a conversation with corporate Nigeria about how businesses could collectively accelerate women's economic participation while building stronger, more resilient organizations. And to be honest about that, what we found in the room was very, very, very supportive and very enlightening. We expected engagement, we expected commitment, and we got it in the room then. Today, we move from that conversation to implementation, from shared commitment to measurable action, from ambition to delivery.
I do remember one of such meetings, about women, where a man did say, that I think it was former Minister of Power Works, Mr. Fashola, that men are now endangered species. I didn't know about that. But I mean, we have a lot of conversations on women now and empowering women. And the men, some of them are proud of it. I know Ladi says he's out in the world to empower women. But we'll see how he puts those words into action. When you see him in just a minute on Global News, please ask him. It's time for Global News.
Yes, and it's all about women empowerment right now, and definitely
The plans keep going, at this point. But first off, let's see what's happening in the global economy right now. We see U.S. markets traded yesterday. Let's get a summary from our correspondent, Maria Bird.
U.S. stock market rebounded on Thursday as the Dow Jones was up at 0.2%. The S&P 500 was also up at 0.8%. And the heavy tech NASDAQ led the day up at 1.3%. As many investors saw the AI prospects as hopeful, this could be a positive sign for the U.S. stock market, even though investors did shrug off the U.S.-Iran conflict, as it's clear that the trade attacks that happened on Thursday did not have a clear impact on the U.S. stock market.
All right, let's look at big investor moves now. Star investor Kathy Wood, she's reshaping her technology portfolio once again. Her ARK investment funds have trimmed their stake in chipmaker AMD, boosting holdings in Meta Platforms with a purchase valued at more than $20 million. The move underscores ARK's growing conviction in artificial intelligence and digital platform leaders, even as it takes profit and repositions across the semiconductor space. And over in Asia, Japan's currency is making a strong comeback, lifting pressure off the US dollar. The yen surged after Tokyo unveiled plans to encourage the world's largest pension fund to increase investments in domestic assets, a move expected to boost demand for Japanese bonds and the currency. The development is fueling fresh optimism over the yen's long-term outlook while weighing on the greenback in global currency markets. And we see global grain markets on edge as traders await a key U.S. agriculture report that could reshape supply expectations. Corn prices are holding near multi-month lows after recent declines, while analysts expect the U.S. Department of Agriculture to cut its corn production forecast and raise soybean output estimates. The closely watched report could drive the next major move in global food commodity markets. And to digital assets now, Bitcoin is back above the $64,000 mark, putting the world's largest cryptocurrency on course for a weekly gain. The rebound comes as a rally in technology stocks that lifted investor appetite for risk, helping digital assets recover despite lingering geopolitical tensions. The move signals renewed confidence in crypto markets as investors rotate back into higher growth assets. And that's what's popping in the global economy. We'll bring you more details later on 1:30.
Thank you so much, Ladi. And just before we head out of the studio, the NGX is still in the green, started early this morning, 0.08% in the green, 244,153.90. And the drivers of that, Access Holdings has regained the 25 naira level that it lost some months ago. So I've been jealously following that because it's really interesting. You see it's talking about 25 and then it goes down to about 22. I hope you bought. If you bought that, you have made some money. So it's 25 naira, 10 kobo now, talking about Access. You also have other drivers. International Breweries is green, almost 10% up. NEM Insurance, FCMB, and a whole lot of it. So at 1:30, Ladi Williams will be back to give you updates from the markets and other stories around the continent. I'm Ini John Mekwa, wishing you the best of the rest of the day. Thank you.